I thought it would be fun for all of us to dive in and take a bigger look at the AFC North, right? A very competitive division, and now that the likes of the Cincinnati Bengals have erupted into a Super Bowl contender a year ago, make this division arguably one of the most competitive out there. You could maybe argue up against the AFC West in terms of all four teams going into this season with a real possibility, right? The idea that Cleveland, without their quarterback, may put them in a disadvantaged state, in a place where they may not be able to compete. But I'm telling you right now, Lamar Jackson doesn't get hurt a year ago. The injuries to the running back position before the season started, and then the absolute decimation of their defensive backfield late in the year. Like, the Ravens are right there. People have kind of just dismissed them this offseason for whatever reason.
Well, nobody's really talking about them because the whole Lamar contract thing has just been one giant shrug emoji. No one can really figure out why he hasn't signed or why negotiations aren't further down the road, or the money-wise. It's just a big kind of like, I don't get it, but they are going to be back healthy. J.K. Dobbins is back. He's not on the PUP list. He's practicing. That dude's a monster.
He's a monster.
If they can figure out, obviously they lost Hollywood Brown to the Cardinals, but if they can figure out who their number one outside threat, we know how great Mark Andrews is.
I think,
if they can figure out the outside threat, then, this team's going to be really, really good.
And that tells me they had a ton of confidence in Bateman, right? The big wide receiver out of Minnesota.
Right.
When they invested a first-round draft pick on him. Like, they have to feel that that's where they're going. I asked you this question a little while ago, too. He can't play on this fifth-year option contract, can he? And I mean, also, if this is what he's looking for, and he's betting on himself to play and not get injured after a year where he got injured, to become an unrestricted free agent, he wouldn't be that, right? They could still tag him for the next 2 years. You're playing chicken with something where you could sign an extension where they've plainly said, we want to pay the guy. He's our future.
I know. John Harbaugh's just like, hey, so we're ready. We're ready to sign him, whatever he wants to sign.
Is it just because has the offer been insulting, maybe?
I don't know. TJ, we've talked about this a lot this offseason with Lamar, but I think once Deshaun Watson inked that $230 million guaranteed, I'm sure Lamar was just like, yeah, that's the starting number.
Jump-off spot.
Yeah. We'll start at that.
And then also he probably waited on Kyler to get that contract done. Now that really gave, because if Deshaun's was a little bit like, all right, this is ambitious, Kyler seemed to be more in line with, I guess the Rich goes, who's up next, always in the trajectory of contracts. Right. I'm not a contracts guy, Ryan. None of us here are good at math, so I try to stay out of those things.
But Kyler got 160 and change whatever guaranteed. So you're in a number between that neighborhood.
Yeah.
For two guys who's never won a playoff game, Deshaun and Kyler.
As opposed
to Lamar,
a former MVP.
MVP finally got his first playoff win a couple years ago, and now it's like, okay, let's go. I mean, the guaranteed money better start with 2-0-0. Let's what are we waiting for?
And I that's where the market is. That's where I think owners are pissed. And I asked Andrew Brand about this yesterday. They're pissed at Jimmy Haslam.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Why would you do this? And not only do it and set that precedent, well, because what Andrew told us is because they were off the radar. They weren't going to get him. And then they said, here's a blank check. Fill it in. We'll do it. It's amazing.
I don't know how this is weighing on Lamar, especially as training camp opens. I'm sure he would have liked to have had something done before this time.
And he's not playing the game of being a hold-in guy right here. He's out there practicing.
Yeah, he's out there. He could get hurt at any point.
Yeah.
Also, it's obvious.
It's not chump change what he's making this year in the fifth-year option, guys, right? It's $20+ million.
Right. True.
Also, we're like, Lamar's doing this himself. Let's just be very honest. We all realize that, yes, he has a lawyer, right? I mean, I would assume, even if you don't have an agent, I'm assuming that you do have a lawyer because you do need someone to kind of go over these contracts with a fine-tooth comb, right?
We saw Raekwon Smith yesterday, have a very succinct statement that was made. He does not have an agent currently, but of course he's had to consult with somebody. I mean, that was it was very profound, and there was a bunch of legal jargon that was placed in it. So
yeah, hence the lawyer.
Let's look at I want to look at the Baltimore Ravens schedule here. This division is incredibly difficult, like I was talking about, because of who they play twice a year, right? So they start at the Jets. They then get Miami at home in week 2. That's going to be a great matchup, right?
Playing the AFC East.
Yep. At New England a week later, and then Buffalo. I mean, they literally, for the first 4 weeks of the season, take on the AFC East. That's the first 4 games. And then they get into some of their conference and divisional schedule, right? Cincinnati, at the Giants, Cleveland, and at Tampa Bay, and at New Orleans before their bye, okay? They are every bit as capable of anybody in the AFC of winning a lot. They're talented. They're always ready. And it's just a matter of whether or not they can get explosive plays at the wide receiver position. I think that's the biggest question mark in all of this. Lamar is going to be dynamic. They're going to run the ball well. If DK Dobbins can stay healthy, he's a big physical back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Mark Andrews is arguably one of the best tight ends in the NFL and what he can do down the middle of the field and possession receiver. So, and defensively, they're going to be great, right? They're going to continue to be great if they're healthy, if they stay healthy. There's no reason, in my mind, that Baltimore can't win this division at all. Now, Cincinnati's had a real hook on Baltimore, at least for last year, right? What were the beatdowns by Cincinnati last year? 41-17.
Yeah, big time.
And then 41-21. So, we'll see. Let's move down the line a little bit. The Pittsburgh Steelers,
big question mark.
Freakishly somehow find a way with Ben Roethlisberger just dragging them along last year, not being able to throw the ball, more than 10 yards down the football field, get to the playoffs. Now, they can thank Brandon Staley and the Chargers for, a couple of mistakes late and the Raiders and finding a way to win that. If they tie, don't forget, Steelers are out. Instead, they go to the playoffs. They get routed and run over by the Chiefs immediately in Ben's last game. But now they're in a bit of an unknown. Where's the quarterback position go? Is it Mitch Trubisky? Is it Mason Rudolph, who they've seen before there? Or is it Kenny Pickett, their first pick in this year's NFL draft, right? After seeing where the other quarterbacks went, after seeing how Pickett has progressed so far in camp and is sitting in the 3rd position right now in the initial depth chart, you may think a little bit that they may have reached for Pickett. They probably could have got him in round 2. There was no quarterback that went until the 3rd round, right? So that's an interesting take on all this. I think Mitch Trubisky gets the nod. He's on a limited contract. It's a show me or move on type of thing. I like it. I like it in Matt Canada's offense. The defense is going to be the difference, right? They are really good. They were good a year ago. They had the Defensive Player of the Year. I feel like they've improved some things. Now, what do they do on offense? Hour 3, we were going to get into a little bit of some of my predictions from a couple drafts ago when I hosted, right? And one of them revolves around Najee Harris, whether or not that was the right pick for him. He was pretty darn good last year.
He was.
But we'll get into that further. All right? We'll get into that further. Don't get me wrong. I expect the Steelers to be competitive, but I do think that this team, if Mitch Trubisky cannot play at a very high level, this team could be on the verge, like they were a year ago, of missing the playoffs and maybe not continuing that streak for Mike Tomlin. I always think will have a great answer. I think they'll be ready to go. The Steelers, of course, are my team. I love them as a kid growing up. I want them to be successful. Excited to see what the quarterback position looks like.